Hello, happy Friday. From the KUOW newsroom, this is Seattle Now. I'm Patricia Murphy with a roundup of today's top stories. It's Friday, June 20th. Tourism officials are working on shifting strategy now that fewer Canadians are coming to visit Washington state. The latest data shows about 114,000 passenger vehicles passed from Canada into Washington in May. That's less than half the number that arrived in May last year. Mark Everton is the president and chief executive officer for the Seattle Southside Regional Tourism Authority. He says the group has pulled most of its marketing from Canada and instead is courting domestic travelers.
Our feeder markets for the Seattle area are primarily California, both the Bay Area and Los Angeles, Dallas, Phoenix, and then obviously Chicago, New York, and Boston because of the tech and the pharma business that comes here.
Everton says he's also seeing a bigger push to convince cruise passengers to extend their trip and spend that extra time checking out the region. He spoke at a committee meeting of the King County and Seattle City Councils today. Speaking of impacts from Trump administration policy, builders in the Puget Sound region are starting fewer new homes than at any time in about 14 years. The Puget Sound Business Journal reports that just about 4,500 housing permits were issued so far this year in King, Snohomish, and Pierce counties. That's down more than 27% from the same period the year before. Home builders say tariffs from the Trump administration are a major contributor. The National Association of Home Builders found those duties add about $10,000 to the cost of an average home. The Journal reports that home sales lagged this spring as well, with mortgage rates still relatively high and the median cost of a home hitting $1 million. Another housing story today, the King County Housing Authority is pausing a rental assistance program that helps get formerly homeless people into homes. The Seattle Times reports that the authority is worried about possible budget cuts from the federal government. The agency usually distributes vouchers to supportive housing projects to help subsidize their tenants. They add up to about $35 million in a typical year. A spokesperson told The Times that property owners who have already been promised vouchers will still receive them, but the Housing Authority plans to withhold new commitments while the budget situation gets resolved. President Donald Trump has proposed cutting housing and urban development funding by 40%. A judge has ordered the Trump administration to release $60 million in federal funding for environmental justice projects in the Northwest. The Environmental Protection Agency had blocked that funding in February. It would have gone to disadvantaged communities trying to fight pollution. Meredith Higashi is with Philanthropy Northwest in Seattle, which hopes to administer the grants.
We are thrilled with the court's decision, and we know that there is a road ahead and are committed to doing our best to secure these funds.
An EPA spokesperson declined an interview request and said the agency is reviewing the decision. More than 700 groups had applied to Philanthropy Northwest for federal grants before they were frozen. The funding was authorized by Congress during the Biden administration. Speaking of federal funding, for a second time, President Donald Trump has denied Washington state's request for major disaster aid following the bomb cyclone storm that hit last November. Governor Bob Ferguson appealed Trump's initial denial in May. Neither denial offered any explanation. Senator Patty Murray called the decision a betrayal. Since January, Trump has denied a majority of the major disaster requests he's received from Democratic governors. Trump has approved all but one of the requests he's received from Republican governors. November's bomb cyclone did an estimated $34 million in damage around western Washington. Big news for one of Seattle's longest-running local brands. CVS said in a statement Friday that 20 Bartell stores would become CVS pharmacy locations once CVS's acquisition of Rite Aid is finalized. The company didn't disclose which locations are being rebranded. CVS says it's in the process of buying 64 total Rite Aid and Bartell locations across the Pacific Northwest, with plans to convert the branding on all of them. But a CVS spokesperson says the company knows Bartell is a much-loved brand here, and they still plan to offer many of the local products customers have grown to know and love. That's a quote. There are 39 remaining Bartell locations in Washington. A CVS spokesperson says it's unclear if other retailers have purchased any Bartell assets. And here's something cool. Researchers at the University of Washington say they've discovered a way to predict harmful algae blooms in oceans. Those blooms produce toxins that can make people and animals sick and shut down shellfish production. Scientists collected water samples off Orcas Island every 4 hours for 3 weeks. They found that the nearby marine bacteria show telltale signs before a bloom up to 3 days in advance. Lead investigator Miranda Mudge says she hopes the findings will allow much earlier intervention.
Because what happens right now is we're limited to mitigation strategies. So we see that the bloom occurs and then we respond. But at that point, it can be too late. There's already potentially toxins in the water.
The researchers say they hope eventually to be able to create a rapid test and to learn how to forecast when a bloom will end. Their findings are published in the journal Nature Communications. How about a hike? Washington Trails Day is coming up tomorrow. It's a day to recognize the state's many hiking trails and the volunteers who help care for them. This year, Governor Bob Ferguson issued a formal proclamation recognizing the day statewide. This year's activities will include a new focus on public lands advocacy, with groups raising awareness about proposed federal changes that could impact trail access. People around the state are expected to hike, volunteer, and participate in local trail-based events to mark the occasion. A section of one of the most scenic drives in western Washington reopened this week, nearly 60 days after it was closed by a landslide. Choconut Drive has been closed between the Oyster Dome Trailhead and Choconut Manor since April 22nd. Crews have cleared more than 3,600 tons of boulders and debris since then. In places, WashDOT says the slide was 30 feet high. They also repaired the damaged guardrail and the road surface. And we celebrate a meteorological holiday today. The summer solstice will arrive at 7:42 this evening, the day with the most daylight in the year. We're getting a total of 15 hours and 59 minutes of daylight today. Beginning tomorrow, the amount of daylight will slowly begin to lessen until we'll have just 8 hours and 25 minutes of daylight on December 21st. But don't think about that right now. You still have time to practice your stilt walking skills and get your bubbles ready for tomorrow's annual solstice parade in Fremont. Next week on Seattle Now, there are many ways to care for and protect Washington's public lands. We'll go out with a Washington Trails Association volunteer crew and learn about other ways to be good land stewards in challenging times for public lands.
A big part of being a hiker in Washington is understanding the work that goes into making the trails available for you to enjoy, and in whatever way you can, doing a little bit to make sure that that perpetuates into the future.
Hear that Monday. That's all for today from the KUOW newsroom in Seattle. Our producer is Vaughn Jones, and I'm Patricia Murphy. Seattle Now and KUOW are members of the NPR network. See you later.